Hey, this is Leighton from Just Collect. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video about another amazing adventure, an unbelievable collection that I recently had the good fortune to go check out in Fremont, Nebraska. And when he first contacted me, the list was really kind of like very scattered, meaning they said they had some old vintage cards, they had some memorabilia, they had Heartlands, and there was enough keywords in there where they piqued my interest. The collection really runs the gamut from T206s to, I'd say, about the 1960s. There's some stuff in the 1970s, but it's not just sports cards. There's a lot of fun, like Babe Ruth premiums from Quaker Oats. There's a lot of Topps inserts, Topps Giants, and then there's like the rub-offs, the peel-offs. There's 48 Topps Magic photos, and even a couple complete vintage sets, such as 1964 Topps Baseball, 1955 Topps All-American. There's a collection of hundreds of B-18 blankets with Ty Cobb. I mean, this list just goes on and on. I started to think about how would I actually purchase this collection? How would I get it back from Nebraska if we're able to do something together? So I started to put together a spreadsheet. And as we were building the spreadsheet, it was starting to reach some substantial values, meaning, I remember crossing the $20,000, the $30,000, the $40,000 mark in terms of value. So as you can imagine, I've never been to Nebraska before this trip. I don't have any family or friends that live there. So in order for me to go out there, what I was telling Jeff and his uncle Curtis before I would commit to that is I needed to know what they had, talk about what I think it's worth, as well as what we would pay for some of that material before booking a ticket, incurring the expense. The family was very diligent. I almost felt like it was like a bi-weekly call that we did, sharing with me some of the different areas of their collection. So I would be diligently taking notes. From that conversation, I would then get in touch with Jeff afterwards, and I would explain to him, from what your uncle just shared with me, these are some of the items that I'm looking to get images of. And the reason why I wanted images of those is I could figure out from that, hopefully, what the approximate condition was, and then therefore what the value would be, and ultimately what we might pay for that. So we collaborated probably for, I would say, a solid month, maybe even a little bit longer, back and forth. It looked like we were all systems go, right? We were all rowing in the same direction, and I decided to book a trip out there, and I was very surprised when I tried to find a direct flight from Newark Airport to Omaha, Nebraska. There was no direct flights to Omaha. So I had to fly out of LaGuardia. And the traffic can be challenging. So what I decided to do was to take the first flight out on that Monday and hope to avoid some of that crazy, insane traffic, going from Hoboken, New Jersey through New York City, out to the Queens area and ultimately LaGuardia Airport. And I think this happens to, even the best quarterbacks in the NFL or the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. You still get your butterflies when you're going out on these deals. Certainly nothing's guaranteed. And you also don't know, is there anything really much beyond this initial group of material that you've conferred about and spent a month or in some cases even longer going back and forth about. I was a little bit nervous, but nonetheless very, very excited, because when you're talking about a collection that hasn't seen the light of day in over 5 decades, and I want to be very clear, so Uncle Curtis is in his late 70s. He understood that this was going to be a monumental task for anyone else to deal with other than himself. And so he didn't know he's necessarily going to sell everything at once, how it was going to work, but he wanted to at least test the waters. And test the waters he did. When I got ultimately to Nebraska and rented the car and went straight to his home in Fremont, they welcomed me with open arms. And then after that, it was like right to work. When I say I was in a foxhole, I was literally in his basement for almost 3 days in a row. And the reason why I was able to kind of forecast how much time I needed is based on just the sheer amount of items I had inventoried even before going out there. I figured that if you worked, give or take about 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, you realize I'm in their home, so you can't really work that much longer than that because you need their cooperation to do that. Then I would have a brief period in the evenings to both eat dinner and then also recap my notes from the day, go through those, and then see, of course, any of the new material, new cards, the new memorabilia that I'd be able to do the evaluation for at night, ultimately go back the next morning and kind of start that process over. But of course, with each passing day, we'd start off the mornings with what I found from the day before. We spent days looking at the material, I had a lot of fun. When I first got there, Uncle Curtis and his family offered to take me out to dinner, and I said, if we have the time, I'd be happy to. But of course, with the amount of work that we had to do and get done in this short amount of time, we were not able to go out to dinner. But I did get to know Curtis very well over those few days because he basically sat across from me. And it was really fun because not only did I get to hear about his journey in collecting over multiple decades with one of his brothers who unfortunately is no longer with us, but also another family member of his, he explained to me some things that I really never understood and thought about. And so, for example, he was really into old advertisements, but not maybe the way that you and I would think to start off with. In other words, not for the value of the advertisement. For example, he would save advertisements from Quaker Oats featuring Babe Ruth premiums such as a cap or different books or a flip book. And I said, oh, that's super colorful. And he said, Leighton, I didn't really save them though because I thought they were cool or interesting or attractive. I saved them because I would bring to a convention maybe, this baseball cap that was very nondescript, and they would have no idea that that was a Babe Ruth premium from Quaker Oats. I said, oh, that's so interesting. And he just kept showing me, for example, this is a magazine. I bought a Babe Ruth Wheaties flip book from him. But this is a magazine with an advertisement for the very Babe Ruth Wheaties flip book that I bought from Uncle Curtis. And that's probably like the 1930s time period. And so it really taught me that even in the age of the internet and Google, that there's something to be said for doing research the old-fashioned way. And I mean, he has an incredible collection of these advertisements, and like I said, not so much because of the value of the advertisements, but he was able to kind of figure out different premiums from the likes of Dizzy Dean or other famous ball players from the day, like Babe Ruth. He had an exceptional amount of Babe Ruth memorabilia and premiums. And it was just really fun to hear him talk about kind of his journey going into the card shows and conventions. Remember, this is all pre-eBay and internet, so if folks had a question back in the day about some of this type of material, he said, he was kind of a guru of sorts. So it was really a treat to sit with Uncle Curtis for a few days and not only have the ability to look through what was a multiple decades fresh collection to the hobby, but to hear the stories behind so many of the different pieces, the different nationals. Remember, he was going to the National Sports Collectors Convention. He went to one in St. Louis. I didn't start going to them until the late 90s. I didn't even start going to them until there was no more nationals in St. Louis anymore. Fast forward to that Wednesday morning, and we're going through everything, but this is, I guess, going to tie back to the beginning of the video when I talked about our process. And what's nice is, because we had already cataloged a solid $40,000 or $50,000 of goods, we started with that. And if there was any discrepancy about condition, we went over that. And therefore, if there was a discrepancy about condition that affected the price, we would talk about all of that. And that really did give us a wonderful foundation for the basis for the whole entire deal. And of course, I explained to him, and this is important for you to know in case you ever contact our company here, as much as I want to buy everything in everyone's collections, sometimes you don't necessarily reach a deal on an item or two or on a particular group of items. And ultimately, he decided, for example, on his Red Man tobacco cards, he said, you know what, it's not even that I think you're not appraising them fairly. I just decided I think I kind of want to keep them. I wanted to have a nice memory of these, and I always love the colors, the vividness, and most of mine have tabs. So on that Wednesday morning, we're going through everything, and we started to get into some of the more, I would say, difficult to find items, matchbooks, and Dixie lids. After he saw the due diligence that I not only did when I was sitting in front of him, but I had supporting documentation for all the different areas of his collection. He really appreciated the research that I had done and the thoroughness that I completed his evaluation. When we were getting down to it, there was a few hours left, and I've had people ask me this in videos before, if you're running out of time, why don't you just book the flight, for example, like the next day? So keep in mind, folks, at this point, I'm already in Nebraska for 72 hours from Monday to Wednesday. And remember, if I didn't need the time, I was happy just to explore the area. We were running up against a tight time frame, and once we kind of had the basis of a deal, we reached the deal, we shook hands, and this is what is just what's beautiful about life. So I'm asking Curtis who I should write the checks to. And he said, actually, I'd like you to divide it into three. I said, oh, do you want me to divide it equally, the amount? We spent about $77,000. Do you want me to divide it equally into three different amounts and just all in your name? Without breaking a sweat, he said, one of them is going to be me and the other two are going to be my sisters. I said, oh, well, that was very nice of you. Did they collect with you? And I didn't want to ask too many questions. And he said, no, Layton, at the point in my life where, we don't have to get into it, but he's getting to be a little bit older. And he said that he wasn't in need of all of those funds. And really was very touched because I saw it unfold in front of me. In other words, he could have taken the money and he could have given it to whoever he wanted, but he did it, right then and there. I really appreciated that. And as I got to know not only Uncle Curtis, but Jeff, which I guess is his nephew, he's not able to go into an office right now. He's looking for remote work. And so we're trying to figure out if our lead blog writer, which is Monty, does an amazing job for several years for us. We're going to try to work with Jeff remotely in Nebraska to see if he can help start writing articles, not just about collections that we purchase, but about areas of collecting that are really interesting and that maybe other folks like you who are watching this video might want to know more about, some of these ads. And so what's really cool is that if we reach a deal with Jeff, he'll probably start writing articles about some of the areas in the pockets that his very own Uncle Curtis was collecting for the last 50 or 60 years. And as the time was closing in, and of course this is always fun and a challenge, he said, well, how are we going to get all this stuff to you in New Jersey? I said, well, we're going to start off with, I had a carry-on piece of luggage, I had my backpack, and then I had a big, what I would call the bag I'm going to check, piece of luggage, but it had nothing in it on the way out. So when we reached the deal, I said, Uncle Curtis, can you hang out for a minute? Jeff, just wait for me. So I bring into the house a piece of luggage and said, Layton, everything's not going to fit in there. We had talked about it over the last few days, that we're going to organize whatever doesn't fit, and with time permitting, I'm going to physically pack up the material myself, and if we run out of time, I'm either going to try to stay an extra day, or with your cooperation and assistance, get you to help me ship this stuff back through the mail. We pack everything up. I'm sweating profusely because I'm trying to catch my flight. And by the way, I have to get back because the next day I'm taking care of my son. We pack everything up. My carry-on's completely full. The carry-on luggage, I pick it up. I say, Curtis, how much do you think this weighs? I don't think it's 100. It could be 75, 80 pounds. So you're looking at probably another, 400 to 450 pounds of cards. You might say, well, wait, how do you know it's that much? Because we just got in the packages the other day and there was 11 boxes. That is right. There was 11 boxes of material that did not fit on the plane with me. Uncle Curtis, his nephew Jeff, and Jeff's mother were kind enough to all kind of pitch in, and we paid them for their time and the supplies. We got everything safely here. So with those cards, plus the cards that I took with me on the plane, it was about probably 550 pounds of vintage cards and memorabilia that we were able to secure and buy from Fremont, Nebraska. I get to the airport with this big, heavy-duty, piece of luggage I'm going to check, and my carry-on. I'm feeling pretty good about the carry-on. Got no problems with my backpack. And I said, oh, how you doing? Great, put your bag you're going to check right here. So it was 74 pounds. So I now know the rules down packs. This is Delta. I usually fly United. If you're over 70 pounds for a bag you're going to check, they're going to ding you for 200. That's right, $200. So she said, if you can figure out a way to extract 4 pounds from the bag and be at 70, you'll save $200. All right. So I take kind of like a burly looking binder. I don't even know what was in it, honestly. And I just zip it back up. I put it on. Magically, it was 69 pounds. So I'm good there. I said, out of curiosity, just in case in the future, let's say I'm willing to pay the 200. How much weight can I put in the bag? Because it's not infinite. I now know 100 pounds. At 101 pounds, they will refuse your bag no matter how much money you give them. So I now understand in the future, I don't want to be walking in there with a 90, 9,500 pound bag, especially with nowhere else to put it. Story's not quite over though yet. So I checked that bag. I'm feeling great. I'm whistling, singing to myself, walking through the airport. Really proud that, we're able to reach this deal and buy an amazing collection. I had a wonderful time. Super excited to see my son, the next day. So I get to, the area, the security area, and, typically for those areas, you got to put your bag through, all that good stuff. And when I've done this in the past, especially when I go to the conventions, if I have like a shoot of PSA cards, some reason or another, it always sets off the X-ray machine. And this collection, by the way, was mostly ungraded. There was a portion of graded, but it was mostly ungraded. That being said, some of the graded material, the best cards, I brought with me on the plane. And when I put everything through the first time, it passed, meaning they didn't ask to see anything else. Like, this is great. I'm gonna have time to maybe get a drink, snack, etc. So as I'm sitting there and I realized I took too long, I'm putting in my belt, like I said, I'm still whistling, I'm so excited. The airport's tiny there. Guy goes, you know what, sir? We gotta take your carry-on luggage piece. We just gotta run it through one more time. You don't have any weapons on you, right? No, weapons on me, no problem. So he puts it through, and of course, it gets flagged. But remember, this entire time, I'm thinking, worst case, it is just simply going to be, they're going to take a look at the plastic PSA cards, be on my way, skippy dippy. All right. So he said, sir, are you sure you don't have any weapons on you? He asked me again. I mean, I don't even carry a weapon. That's why I don't carry cash, So I said, I mean, not to the best of my knowledge. I answered it, like the way you would if you're on the stand. So he starts going through, and I swear to God, he's like going through the box, and I started to get this feeling. I'm like, I think I forgot something. I don't know what it is. And he fishes it out, and he goes, what is this? Now, of course, this is a pen. I said, oh yeah, that's a Babe Ruth pocket knife. Vintage, as if that's going to matter to this guy. So he's looking at it. He's like, you can't bring that on the plane. I'm like, oh, that's a bummer. I'm like, what do I do? He's like, oh, you could go back to, the check-in area and you could check it in your bag. Huh. Looking at my watch, I'm like, I don't think I have enough time for that. Is there anything else I could do? He's like, you can't bring it on the plane. Huh. So I decided to do what I thought was reasonable. I said, sir, it's your lucky day. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, my company. I was just in Fremont, Nebraska. I bought a great collection. I didn't tell him the amount, by the way. I said, here's the thing. You're seeing this unfold firsthand. This is a vintage Babe Ruth pocket knife, and it looks like I'm not going to be able to bring it home with me. So my suggestion is you can keep it. He said, what? I said, well, I don't want to destroy it. I said, however, if you decide to keep it and you're interested in selling it, name of my company is justcollect.com. You can email me, Leighton@justcollect.com, and I'd be happy to buy it from you. And he said, didn't you already buy it? I said, yeah, I'd be buying it twice. And with that, we are going to wrap up today's video. No, I've never heard from that TSA agent or that airport agent. But if you see a Babe Ruth pocket knife out there anywhere in the wild, let me know. I'm a buyer. Thanks for tuning in today, everybody.